I spent 32 years being the invisible one. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a way that would make anyone feel sorry for me. Just in the quiet, persistent way that families have of choosing one child over the others. In my family, that child was my brother. His name is Shane. He's 3 years older than me. And from the moment we were born, the path was clear. Shane would be the success story. Shane would make everyone proud. Shane would carry the family name into rooms where it mattered. And I would be whatever was left over. It started small. The way these things always do. When we were kids, Shane's B- was room for improvement. My A- was, why wasn't it an A? When Shane made the varsity team, my parents bought him a celebratory dinner. When I made honor roll, my mother said, "That's nice, dear," and kept watching television. When Shane got accepted to State University on a partial scholarship, my father told everyone at work for months. When I got a full ride to a better school, my father said, "Well, someone had to pay for it." I learned early that no amount of achievement would ever be enough. So I stopped trying to prove anything to them. I stopped trying to earn their approval. I just lived my life, quietly at a distance. I moved across the country after college. Not out of anger, just out of practicality. There was nothing for me in that town. I built a career in data analytics, which sounds boring but actually pays extremely well. I worked for mid-sized companies, then larger ones, then finally landed at a Fortune 500 firm where I ran an entire department. I owned a modest house, drove a reasonable car, and had a small circle of friends who didn't care about my family dynamics. I was content. Not happy in a fireworks and parade way, but content. Stable. Fine. Shane, meanwhile, was living the life our parents had always envisioned for him. He'd climbed the corporate ladder at a prestigious investment firm, married a woman from a wealthy family, bought a house in the right neighborhood, and produced 2 grandchildren who were already being groomed for greatness. He was exactly what our parents had ordered. We didn't talk much. Christmas cards. The occasional text. A phone call on birthdays that lasted exactly 7 minutes before one of us found an excuse to hang up. It wasn't hostile. It just wasn't anything. Then came the dinner. Shane's firm was celebrating a major acquisition, and the party was at some exclusive downtown venue that required a dress code and a guest list. To my complete shock, Shane invited me. Not just invited, insisted. "You have to come," he said on the phone, his voice warm in a way I didn't recognize. "It's a huge deal. The whole executive team will be there. I want you to meet everyone." I was suspicious. I'd spent 32 years being invisible to him. Why the sudden interest? "It's my moment," he explained. "I want my family there. Please. It would mean a lot." So I went. I bought a new dress, took a Friday off work, and flew back to the city where I grew up. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe people change. Maybe Shane had finally grown up. Maybe this was the start of something new. I was wrong. The venue was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline. A jazz trio in the corner. Waiters circulating with champagne and tiny appetizers that probably cost more than my first car. Shane greeted me at the door with a hug that felt almost genuine. "You made it," he said, beaming. "Come on, let me introduce you around." For the first hour, it was fine. He introduced me to colleagues, partners, a few executives. I smiled, shook hands, made small talk. People asked what I did, and when I said data analytics, their eyes glazed over the way they always do. That was fine. I was used to it. Then the dinner seating began. Shane had placed me at a table in the corner. Not the main table, not even close. A small round table near the kitchen doors, with 3 other people I didn't know. A junior associate's wife, an intern, and someone's elderly aunt who kept asking where the bathroom was. I told myself it was fine. There were a lot of people. Seating arrangements were complicated. It didn't mean anything. Then the speeches started. The CEO spoke first, praising the deal and the team. Then the CFO. Then a few senior partners. Then, finally, Shane was called to the podium. He walked up there like he owned the place, all confidence and charm. He thanked the right people, told a few jokes, landed every punchline perfectly. He was good at this. He'd always been good at this. And then toward the end of his speech, he said something that made my blood run cold. "I want to thank my family for being here tonight," he said, gesturing toward the main table where his wife and children sat. "My beautiful wife, my amazing kids. You're my everything." The audience applauded. Shane waited for it to die down, then continued. "And I also want to acknowledge someone else who's here tonight. My sister." He pointed toward my corner table. Every head in the room turned. I felt heat rush to my face. "My sister," Shane repeated, his voice dripping with something I couldn't quite identify, "is our family's resident cautionary tale. She moved away years ago, chasing some dream or another. Still chasing, I guess. She works in, what is it again? Data something." A few people laughed. Nervous laughter, the kind that isn't sure if it's allowed. "She's our family's failure," Shane said, smiling that perfect smile. "But we love her anyway. Isn't that right, everyone?" The room erupted in laughter. Real laughter this time. People were actually laughing at me. At the table in the corner. At the invisible sister who had flown across the country to be humiliated. I sat frozen, my hands gripping my napkin, my face burning. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. Then, from somewhere behind me, a chair scraped against the floor. I turned. A man was standing. Older, distinguished, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit. He was at a table near the back, a table I hadn't noticed before. A table that held only two people. Him, and a woman who looked equally important. The room went quiet. "Shane," the man said, his voice calm but carrying. "I think you should sit down now." Shane's smile flickered. For the first time all night, he looked uncertain. "Mr. Harrington," he said. I know exactly what you were just doing," the man said. He was already walking toward the front of the room. His steps measured, deliberate. Every eye followed him. "Sit down, Shane." Shane sat. The man reached the podium and turned to face the room. He was maybe 60, with silver hair, and the kind of presence that made you sit up straighter without realizing why. I recognized him now. Everyone did. Richard Harrington, the founder and CEO of Harrington Group. The man who had built a multi-billion-dollar company from nothing. The man who apparently was Shane's ultimate boss. "I've been in this business for 40 years, Harrington said. "I've seen a lot of things. I've seen brilliant deals and catastrophic failures. I've seen people rise and fall. But I have never, in 4 decades, seen someone publicly humiliate their own family member at a company event." The silence was absolute. You could hear ice clinking in glasses across the room. "Shane," Harrington continued, turning to look at my brother, "you're a talented analyst. That's why we hired you. That's why you were promoted. But talent doesn't excuse character. And what I just witnessed was a complete failure of character." Shane opened his mouth, but Harrington held up a hand. "I'm not finished. You called your sister our family's failure. You laughed at her. You encouraged others to laugh. And you did it in front of colleagues, clients, and executives. You did it at a celebration of your own success, as if her presence was a punchline." He paused, letting the words land. "But here's what you don't know, Shane. Here's what you clearly never bothered to learn about your own sister." Harrington turned to me. "Stand up, please." I stood on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. "Tell me your name," he said gently. "Lena," I whispered. Then louder, "My name is Lena." "And what do you do, Lena?" "I'm a director of data analytics at Meridian Group." "Meridian Group?" Harrington repeated, nodding slowly. "And for those of us who don't know, what is Meridian Group?" I swallowed. "We're a data infrastructure firm. We provide analytics solutions for Fortune 500 companies, including actually some of the firms represented in this room tonight." Harrington smiled. "Including mine." The room stirred. People exchanged glances. 6 months ago, Harrington continued, Meridian Group pitched us on a major contract. A $30 million contract to overhaul our entire data architecture. We interviewed 5 firms. Meridian wasn't the biggest. They weren't the flashiest. But their presentation was brilliant, clear, insightful, exactly what we needed. He looked at me. Do you know who led that presentation? I shook my head. I didn't know. I wasn't on that team. It was a woman named Dr. Patel, your colleague. And when we asked her how she understood our company so well, she told us something interesting. She said her director had spent months studying our industry, our challenges, our competitors. She said her director had predicted exactly what we would need before we even knew we needed it. Harrington walked closer to me. That director was you, Lena. Dr. Patel told us everything. The late nights. The research. The insights that won us over. We signed the contract because of the work you did behind the scenes. Work you never took credit for. I felt tears prick my eyes. I didn't know. I had done the research because that's what I do. I never expected anyone to notice. Shane, Harrington said, turning back to my brother. You just called this woman a failure. You held her up as a joke. But the truth is, she's the reason this company is $30 million closer to our goals this year. She's the reason we're growing. She's the reason your department has the data it needs to make decisions. He paused. And you? You're a mid-level analyst who just demonstrated to every executive in this room that you lack the judgment and character required for leadership. Shane's face had gone gray. His wife was staring at him with an expression I couldn't read. His colleagues were looking anywhere but at him. I'm not going to fire you tonight, Harrington said. That would be dramatic, and I don't do drama. But I am going to tell you this. Your trajectory at this company just changed. Permanently. And I suggest you spend some time thinking about what kind of person you want to be. He turned back to me. Lena, would you join me at the main table? I'd like to introduce you to some people who have questions about our data infrastructure. I walked toward him on legs that still didn't feel real. As I passed Shane's table, I saw him staring at his plate, his hands shaking. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The rest of the night was a blur. Handshakes. Business cards. Questions about data architecture that I actually knew how to answer. People treated me differently now, but I tried not to think about why. I just answered their questions, smiled and nodded. At the end of the night, Harrington pulled me aside. Your brother, he said quietly. I meant what I said. His career here is effectively over. Not because of one mistake, but because of what that mistake revealed about him. We don't promote people who tear others down. I nodded, not sure what to say. But I want to talk about you, he continued. Meridian is a good firm. But we're about to expand our data division significantly. We need someone with your instincts, your work ethic, your ability to see what others miss. If you're ever interested in a change, call me. He handed me a card with his personal number. I flew home the next day. Shane didn't call. Our parents didn't call. I spent the flight staring out the window, replaying the night in my head, trying to decide how I felt. I wasn't happy. That would have been too simple. I wasn't triumphant. I wasn't vengeful. I was just seen. For the first time in 32 years, someone had actually seen me. 6 months passed. I didn't call Harrington. I thought about it, but I didn't. I went back to my quiet life, my data analytics, my modest house and reasonable car. The night of the dinner started to feel like a dream, something that happened to someone else. Then the package arrived. It was a thick manila envelope, no return address. Inside, I found a letter from Shane's wife. Her name is Rachel, and we'd never exchanged more than a dozen words. Lena, I'm sending this without Shane's knowledge. I think you deserve to know what happened. After the dinner, everything changed. Shane was moved to a different department. His projects were reassigned. His bonus was cut by 70%. He stopped getting invited to meetings, then stopped getting invited to lunches, then stopped getting invited to anything at all. 6 weeks ago, he was let go. Restructuring, they called it. We both know the truth. He hasn't handled it well. He blames you, of course. He blames Harrington. He blames everyone but himself. Our marriage is barely hanging on. The kids are confused. We're probably going to lose the house. I'm not writing this to make you feel guilty. You have nothing to feel guilty about. He did this to himself. I'm writing because I want you to know that someone in this family sees you. I always have. I just never knew how to say it. I hope you're well. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be. Rachel. I read the letter 3 times. Then I set it down and stared out the window for a long time. I didn't feel guilty. I felt sad maybe, but not guilty. Shane had built his own cage, brick by brick, year by year. I just happened to be standing nearby when it finally closed around him. I didn't respond to Rachel. I didn't know what to say. But I kept the letter. Another 6 months. Then a year. Then 2. I stayed at Meridian. I got promoted twice. I now run the entire data division, with a team of 43 people and a budget that would have made my younger self dizzy. I still live in the same modest house, drive the same reasonable car. Some things don't need to change. I never called Harrington. But last month, his company reached out to Meridian about a new contract. A bigger one this time. $60 million. I led the negotiations. We signed the deal last week. At the signing dinner, Harrington himself was there. He shook my hand and smiled. I knew you'd end up here one way or another, he said. You just had to take your own path to get here. I smiled back. I like my path. He nodded. I know. That's why you're going to succeed at everything you do. My parents call sometimes now. They're older, softer, more aware of their own mortality. They don't mention Shane much. They ask about my work, my life, my plans. I answer politely and keep the conversations short. Shane never called. I heard through Rachel that he moved to a different state, took a job at a smaller firm, started over. She didn't say whether they were still together. I didn't ask. I think about that dinner sometimes. Not with anger, not with satisfaction. Just with a quiet sense of wonder at how one moment can change everything. One moment of humiliation, followed by one moment of truth. I didn't plan any of it. I didn't scheme or plot or wait for revenge. I just showed up, sat at the table I was given, and let the night unfold. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes being seen is the only revenge you need. Last week, I hired a new junior analyst. Young kid, fresh out of college, nervous as a cat in a dog park. On his first day, he knocked on my office door and asked if I had a minute. Sure, I said. What's on your mind? He shifted from foot to foot. I just wanted to say, I know I'm junior. I know I don't know anything yet. But I really want to learn. I'll work as hard as you need. I want to be good at this. I looked at him. So young. So eager. So afraid of being invisible. Sit down, I said. Let me tell you a story. I told him about a dinner, a speech, and a man who stood up when no one else would. I told him about being called a failure in front of 100 people. I told him about the moment everything changed. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. So what's the moral? He finally asked. Work hard and eventually someone will notice. I shook my head. No. The moral is, work hard for yourself. Not for anyone else. Because you never know who's watching. And even if no one ever watches, even if no one ever notices, you'll still have built something that matters. You'll still have become someone you're proud of. He nodded slowly. I could see him processing, filing it away. One more thing, I said. In this office, we don't tear people down. We build them up. If I ever hear you mocking someone, belittling someone, making them feel small, you won't last a week. Understood. Understood, he said. He left my office walking a little taller. I turned back to my computer and kept working. There was data to analyze, problems to solve, a team to lead. Just another day in an ordinary life. But ordinary, I've learned, is its own kind of extraordinary. And being seen? That's just the beginning.